fairy tale didn't crack quietly, it shattered the moment two of Britain's most fearless insiders pointed straight at the one subject Harry and Meghan guard harder than money, titles, or Netflix contracts. Because once you start pulling at the thread of Archie and Lilibet's births, the entire Sussex narrative begins to unravel in public. This isn't tabloid gossip whispered in corridors. This is where the royal mask slips, and what's underneath is chaos, contradiction, and questions no amount of PR spin can bury. The story detonates right here. Lady calling
Absolutely. What we're really now seeing is that both of them, having posed as the victim for so long, are really the aggressors.
Harry and Meghan Markle's surrogacy scandal has entered the mainstream media domain. Now, this story may have been somewhat overshadowed this week by the duplicitous duo's disgusting disaster tourism.
We have created the stories and the speculation and the questioning about the origin of both children. I wasn't born yesterday, and I know that 2 and 2 make 4. They don't make 22.
I think the palace and the machinery of the monarchy needs to take Harry and Meghan more seriously and make sure that Harry and Meghan's antics don't impact the future of the country.
No, I choose people who don't want to be written about on the whole, whose lives are shrouded in mystery, and they want to hide their secrets, and I just love digging away to find out what they don't want us to know.
What Harry and Meghan need to do is prove to us that she popped those babies out. And that's all they need to do. And if they don't, it is unfair on the children. It's also unfair on the royal family.
This case about whether you think the birth was real, whether you think there was a surrogate, whether you think Meghan was wearing a moon bump. The fact is, Harry and Meghan lied. Buckingham Palace lied on their behalf. There was a complete cover-up over the birth of Prince Archie.
Very intelligent and undoubtedly remains damaged by the early death of his mother, Diana. And he very foolishly blames the media for her, in his words, which is complete nonsense. But I think he loved the adulation. He loved it when he was being praised, especially when he was a soldier. But then he became criticized, firstly because he became drunk in public.
But if she hasn't had the children herself, or Harry hadn't been involved, then they can't be in the royal line. They have to have royal blood, those little ones. Without that, there's no chance of them coming in a member of the...
Campbell and Tom Bower didn't speculate, they documented contradictions. Changed birth papers, missing hospital confirmations, staff who supposedly don't exist, security logs that come up empty, timelines that make no medical sense. These aren't random critics chasing clicks. These are two people who have spent decades inside royal systems, who know how births are logged, how security operates, and how impossible it is for a royal baby to simply vanish from the paper trail. From the very first second, the message is chilling, something doesn't add up, and it never has. Every detail screams control. The Sussex brand was built on precision, glossy interviews, choreographed outrage, curated vulnerability. But suddenly, when the subject turns to the births, everything becomes vague, foggy, and aggressively private. And that's exactly where Lady Colin Campbell and Tom Bower aimed their spotlight, at the one area where the Sussex story refuses verification. This moment landed like a grenade, because it wasn't framed as rumor. It was framed as fact, hospital logs, altered certificates, insiders who claim they finally feel safe enough to speak. And once that door opens, it doesn't close again. Royal births follow a strict, unbreakable playbook. Approved doctors, royal physicians on standby, security lockdowns, press updates, and then the iconic hospital steps photo, a tradition followed without exception. Except this time, none of it happened. Instead, the public got a delayed statement, no hospital photo, no confirmation from staff, and silence, where transparency should have been automatic. Lady Colin Campbell doesn't mince words. She says the confusion wasn't accidental, it was manufactured. A deliberate fog meant to block scrutiny while damaging the wider royal institution. Here's where it gets darker. Staff at Portland Hospital, the very place where Archie was supposedly born, reportedly could not place Meghan there. No midwives, no front desk confirmations, no security logs. That alone is staggering. For comparison,
That bump had more S than the fantasies that Meghan and Harry go around divesting themselves of in their 16 bathrooms.
And every minute of Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis' births was tracked, verified, and witnessed. Yet somehow the most controversial royal couple of the modern era slipped through without a trace. Even stranger, the palace announcement claimed Meghan was in labor hours after Archie was already said to be born. Why announce labor after the birth had allegedly already happened? Under normal royal procedures, that's impossible. Then came the paperwork. 11 days later, Archie's birth certificate was quietly altered. Meghan's given names disappeared. Prince suddenly appeared before Harry's name. Palace officials distanced themselves instantly, insisting the change came from the Sussex camp. Why erase Rachel Meghan from an official record unless the original details didn't fit the narrative? And then history repeated itself. June 2021, Lilibet Diana, Santa Barbara Cottage Hospital. One glance at the certificate raised alarms. The state code didn't match California, it matched Colorado. A typo or evidence paperwork was filed somewhere it shouldn't have been? The Sussex camp offered no explanation. Buckingham Palace stayed silent, likely burned after the Archie certificate disaster. And here's the thing that haunts every investigator, this could all be shut down instantly. And they refused to do it. Tom Bower adds fuel to the fire. Why were official royal doctors turned away even after the Queen personally offered them? Why insist on unknown doctors the palace couldn't vet or contact afterward? Bower didn't rely on whispers. He says he personally examined hospital movement logs. He spoke directly to staff, and his conclusion was devastating. If Meghan delivered at those hospitals, it would have had to happen unseen. And in medicine,
Tom, do you think Harry and Meghan are fast learning what they signed away when they took this Netflix big moolah? And I would say they signed away their credibility and their dignity.
Well, that's our view, but it's not theirs. They need the money, and they need it now more than ever because they've got no other source of income. So I think they're just stuck with the devil now. They're tied to Netflix, they're tied to their book, and all the criticism they're going to take means nothing because that's the only way they can.
And that simply doesn't happen. He goes further, saying the entire Portland hospital birth description was fabricated. No images, no logs, no witnesses, no confirmation. 2 children, both officially in the royal line with no verifiable medical proof. That's not celebrity eccentricity, that's a constitutional nightmare. If surrogacy was used, British law requires disclosure for succession eligibility. If eggs were used that weren't Meghan's, succession rights vanish entirely, which explains the sudden legal aggression. Within hours of Lady Colin Campbell's TV appearance, Sussex lawyers allegedly moved toward defamation threats, not explanations, not documents, threats. If the claims were absurd, why not laugh them off? Why rush to silence 2 authors who have never backed down and never lost credibility? Lady Colin Campbell is blunt. These questions strike at the legitimacy of the monarchy itself. By refusing the basic confirmations required for every royal birth since 1689, she says a line was crossed. Privacy no longer applies when constitutional order is at stake. Money pressure only sharpens the stakes. Netflix contracts are collapsing. View counts are sinking. Deals are drying up. A legitimacy scandal would obliterate whatever remains of the Sussex brand. And that's why every public appearance with Archie and Lilibet feels so staged. Perfect angles, minimal exposure, immediate handoffs to nannies. It looks less like parenting and more like performance. The children appear when sympathy is needed, disappear when questions arise. And that pattern?
She has quite deliberately caused doubt, and she has created mischief, knowing that it would damage the royal family.
Keeps repeating. This is no longer about gossip, it's about credibility. Every unanswered question adds weight, every legal threat deepens suspicion, every silence screams louder than denial, and the most dangerous part, all of this could end tomorrow with documents, witnesses, and transparency. Until that happens, the spotlight isn't moving. The silence didn't calm the storm, it confirmed it. Because once the birth questions refused to die, the narrative didn't just just wobble, it mutated. What began as missing paperwork turned into a full-scale credibility crisis, dragging medical claims, legal threats, collapsing deals, and royal succession straight into the blast radius. Lady Colin Campbell didn't soften her tone. She sharpened it. She said the most unsettling part wasn't what people were guessing, it was what still hasn't been shown. No doctors stepping forward. No hospital confirmations. No medical witnesses. Nothing that should exist for two births that allegedly carried enormous risk and global attention. And that's when the story took a darker turn. Because suddenly, years after the fact, a brand new medical crisis appeared in the public narrative, preeclampsia. Lady Colin Campbell's reaction was immediate and cutting. She pointed out that this was a life-threatening condition that demands intensive monitoring, extended hospital stays, and an unmistakable paper trail. Yet somehow, none of it ever appeared at the time. No emergency protocols, no prolonged admissions, no medical alarms. And then came the timeline problems. According to the Sussex version, there were epidurals, rapid discharges, energy-filled public appearances, and physical feats that doctors say simply don't align with such a diagnosis. Lady Colin Campbell said she consulted senior medical professionals who flatly rejected the plausibility of the story. Not unlikely. Impossible. That claim alone didn't just raise eyebrows, it detonated trust. Because this wasn't a forgotten detail, it was a retroactive rewrite of medical history that conveniently arrived at a moment when sympathy, not scrutiny, was desperately needed. Tom Bauer didn't hesitate to connect the dots. He pointed to a pattern, not an isolated exaggeration, but a consistent strategy. Big accusations, minimal evidence, legal pressure, friendly media amplification, then silence. He reminded audiences that this wasn't new behavior. From sworn statements later walked back to denials about third-party authorship that quietly collapsed under legal review, the Sussex record is littered with claims that dissolved once verification was demanded. And Bauer was especially blunt about the births. He said if the truth matched the story, proof would already be public. Hospitals would have confirmed, doctors would have spoken, logs would exist. Instead, there's nothing, and nothing doesn't happen by accident. As the pressure mounted, insiders whispered about panic behind closed doors. Because this wasn't just about public opinion anymore, it was about constitutional risk. Lady Colin Campbell made it clear, succession rules aren't optional. They aren't vibes, they aren't branding, they are legal frameworks that protect the monarchy itself. And by keeping the births opaque, she said, the Sussexes didn't just invite gossip, they manufactured doubt. That doubt now shadows every future decision. Security funding, titles, public roles, even acknowledgement. It's why King Charles III is reportedly unwilling to approve anything without hard proof, not assurances, not press statements. Proof. The late Queen Elizabeth II, insiders whisper, privately questioned the secrecy long before the public did, and that quiet concern now echoes loudly. Then came the business fallout. Netflix. The relationship, once sold as historic, is now described as strained, disappointed, and transactional. Viewership didn't justify the spending. Project stalled. A major adaptation quietly evaporated. Royal insiders say Netflix executives feel misled, sold authenticity, delivered contradiction. And here's the danger. The Sussex brand isn't built on talent alone. It's built on credibility, family authenticity, truth-telling, moral authority. If the birth stories crumble, everything built on them collapses with it. Documentaries, children's content, public sympathy, all of it. That's why the children now appear selectively, carefully, briefly, strategically. Criticism spikes, suddenly there's a photo, a walk, a soft focus moment, then silence again. It doesn't read as protection, it reads as deployment. Lady Colin Campbell went even further, questioning whether the physical signs of pregnancy ever behaved as expected. She mocked moments that defied anatomy, timelines that defied gravity, and movements that defied basic obstetrics. Her point wasn't shock value, it was consistency. Nothing lined up. And the longer the inconsistencies sat unanswered, the more they hardened into suspicion. Tom Bauer delivered one final hammer blow. He said Portland Hospital may never have been the plan at all. Behind the official announcements, he claims, was a completely different intention, a birth far removed from royal oversight, public records, or immediate verification. If true, the press releases weren't updates, they were cover stories. And once again, the pattern reappeared. Control the message, threaten dissent. Let friendly outlets smooth the edges. Wait for the next distraction. But this time, there wasn't one. Because once succession is questioned, distractions don't work. The media strategy unraveled further when past accusations resurfaced. Bullying claims, racism allegations, whisper campaigns that collapsed under scrutiny because names, dates, and documents never followed. Except for one moment, Jason Knopf. One whistleblower, one paper trail, one verified account. And he was instantly targeted. Tom Bauer called it textbook damage control. Silence the source. Protect the myth. Even the Netflix series came under fire. 6 hours of unchecked narrative. No balance. No verification beyond the Sussex version of events. Bauer said any serious broadcaster would have demanded proof. None was given. And now everything hangs in suspension. Because this story doesn't end with rumors. It ends with documents. Or with silence that speaks louder than confession. Lady Colin Campbell said it plainly, all of this could be resolved in a single day. Hospital logs, medical confirmations, named doctors, verified witnesses, one press conference, one disclosure. Instead, there are lawyers, threats, and a growing public belief that if the truth helped them, it would already be out. This isn't family drama anymore. It's a legitimacy crisis. And until the proof replaces the performance, every unanswered question remains exactly where it is, center stage. Center stage.